wanted to be the security guy. He claimed he was a security guy.
Welcome to Security Guy Radio from beautiful Houston, Texas, on the road.
Great state of Texas, Chuck. Good to have you here.
I'm so overjoyed to be in Texas. What a cool state this is. It's unbelievable.
It's a cool state.
It's very
absolutely.
cool.
That's why the whole world's moving here.
It really
way.
is.
Yes,
I mean,
it
I
is.
drove down, is it 41? It's kind of like a road through the center.
Yes.
Highway 41, and you stop, you go about 30 miles, and all of a sudden there's nothing, and then there's a town, and there's 5,000 people in it, and they got a brand new high school.
Oh, nice.
Every one of these towns has a brand new high school.
Nice.
Teeny little town. So obviously, Texas takes care of their education.
Very
I mean,
much
there's
so.
no doubt you can see that because in these towns, there's stuff that's boarded up. Businesses aren't so good. It's, it looks like something out of a movie set, maybe from a 1950s Rock Hudson movie or something, But the people are nice.
Yeah.
They're happy and they're getting by. And the roads are perfect. There's not a pothole in 1,000 miles I drove.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So Texas takes care of infrastructure and
Yes.
education.
Absolutely. We got the biggest roads in the country, and we try to accommodate that. But with everybody moving here, it's getting a little crowded. So,
You could shoot a cannon off anywhere in the state, not anybody. What's the population of Texas?
well, average backyard here is 10 acres. So anything that encroaches
Oh,
on that, we're a little concerned
No,
about.
I noticed that driving from Austin. I drove from Austin this morning, right?
Uh-huh.
And here's the Flying Chuck Ranch, and then
There
you
you go.
drive 20 miles, and then there's another ranch. I mean, they're like
Absolutely.
20 miles apart. It's unbelievable.
We like our space, our open space.
How many people are in Texas?
A lot. That's what we like to tell people when they come here. We got a
Whoa,
lot
you don't
of
say the
people
number?
live here.
We
Well,
got-
in Houston,
California
we
has the
got
most, right? We're
a couple
32
million
million or
people
something?
here, and so this whole area, about 6-7 million people.
Oh, is that in
the
Houston?
greater Houston area.
Is that bigger than Dallas?
So it's almost the exact same population of Dallas and Fort Worth combined.
Oh, interesting.
Actually, San Antonio is the second largest city in the state of Texas.
Oh, maybe because of the military component and things like that? Or?
sure. A lot
Yeah.
of growth going on down
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, very cool place.
Yeah.
So we're at the University of Phoenix today because Friends of Chuck also happens to be on the board of directors.
So the assistant dean for the University of Phoenix and specialized programs specific to near and dear to your heart, the College of Security and Criminal Justice.
Yeah. I did a series with Webster a couple years ago, and I was surprised to find that these degrees are now out there. And back in the day, nobody thought you needed a degree in it, but with all the crap going on in the world and how things aren't working, I think we need more degrees.
Chuck, our founder, John Sperling, 1973, 74, 75, 76, founded this based on the need for first responders, law enforcement, and firefighters
The whole
to have
university.
an education.
The whole university was founded
the
on that
entire
premise.
concept.
Interesting.
Exactly.
So
So
this
he
is
founded on that principle.
So this is really is this the oldest college of the University of Phoenix? The security and
Yes, Security and Criminal Justice.
is the
Criminal
oldest college
Justice.
because that's how it was kind of
Well, it
founded.
was founded on that. I don't know that it's the oldest, but it was definitely founded on that principle so that men and women working in those fields as first responders, firefighters, and law enforcement could actually get an education. And that was near and dear to Mr. Sperling's
Right, because
mission.
they work weird shifts and it's hard to do all that kind of thing. And did it start out as it didn't start out as cyber in the 70s, but now it's grown into online and these educational centers that we're in here, by the way, which is beautiful. It's just a beautiful facility.
Yeah.
And we'll have some photos on the website and YouTube if you take a look at it, where people are sitting in modules and learning, and there's a teacher or professor in the room here. And not
Yes.
this room, but across the way, and then he comes in and helps students and stuff. It's a great
Absolutely.
model.
So we have traditional classrooms, just like you would at any major university, as well as online, and a combination of both. We're on the west side of Houston. At our west campus location, we have 3 locations in the greater Houston area.
So I would, if I send up for an online class, I might come in once a week and ask a professor a question, or I might do it all online. It just depends on how we set it
Absolutely.
up.
There's a whole combination that comes with it. You may come here for 3 hours of classes. Some people come here and do it all here at our building.
Right.
It just depends on, and that's the beauty of the program, is you get to pick and choose, working with the availability in that particular curriculum of how you want to accomplish that. So we want to take away the barriers and make sure that you're successful.
what do you think is the number one need in security nowadays? Everybody has all these different models. There's terrorism models, there's cybersecurity models, there's threats. And not only what the biggest threat is, because I think we might disagree on that, but what do you think is the number one need of security personnel? What do they need out there to get their job done?
So what they need is education and a really clear understanding of what the risk looks like. It all boils down to risk.
Well, identification of the risk, defining the risk.
Absolutely.
And the programs help do that?
But you got to have, as part of that, the competencies, the education, training, and experience. And for example, here at the University of Phoenix, we use practitioners as our faculty.
What do you mean by that?
In a big,
Like
these are
a
people
cop that does the work.
Absolutely. So
Oh.
you would have somebody from the sheriff's office who goes through a very long criteria to become a faculty member, and they just got off their shift dealing with the exact same issue that they're going to instruct and teach on in that classroom. So where the rubber meets the road, they're getting that experience from our faculty.
Maybe Security Guy Radio should give a class. Just saying.
That's a
just maybe.
Hey, we could do that. That might be fun.
Now, if a cop is in here teaching a class, they're not professors necessarily. They're cops. They're not going to school to become a professor, but University of Phoenix vets them, trains them, gives them a teaching credential. Is that how it works to get those sort of real life people in the class?
Absolutely. They're going to have an education, MBA, a master's, or
they
a
will?
PhD.
Okay. All right.
Absolutely.
Oh, all right.
There are strict criteria based on the classes that they're going to teach. And if we're talking about academic, they're going to have to be degreed in order to teach. Now, if we're talking about professional certification, professional training that might take place, or some type of accreditation program, like
Right.
maybe you need some CEUs, right, specific to a certificate that you hold, we could satisfy that. That's another part of what we offer in addition to a traditional academic degree.
How big a business is this part of education? I mean, if you said 15 years ago there's a degree in security management, people would say, what are you talking
What's
about?
that?
Yeah, it's fairly new, isn't it?
It is, but it's becoming the norm, and it's continuing
Becoming
to
a
grow.
standard.
And
Good.
very much
Okay.
the standard,
Right.
right? So we have successfully, over the last 3 years, the ASIS Foundation, you're familiar with
Sure.
ASIS International, and the University of Phoenix put together a security competency model, right? So working together in order to set the standards necessary for hiring in our field, which is really necessary. And I can tell you that both IBM and Time Warner Cable's corporate security have adopted that, and it's sanctioned by the Department of Labor. So this is a good beginning
Yeah.
of being able to do what you're talking about, is setting those standards.
So it grows out of the education system, and as is educational as well. You're not getting a degree; you're getting certified by them.
Correct.
Distinguish the two. I mean, I understand that Phoenix is going to be a degree, but as is courses.
Professional development is the best way to
Yeah, I
put
mean,
that.
is a CPP as good as a degree in security management? I don't think so. It's different, isn't it?
No, it is different. But here's the irony of that is, so ASIS International has a professional certifications board, and I think they're going into their 62nd year. ASIS International is the gold standard in terms of security certifications, and there's 3 of those: the CPP, the PCI, and the PSP.
So can you repeat
Sure.
those acronyms? So we
Certified Protection
you go.
Professional, right? PCI, Professionally Certified Investigator, and PSP, Physical Security Practitioner.
practitioner. Okay, good.
Right. So with those, and my understanding is, let's just talk about CPP. We are now working in partnership with ASIS International and the ASIS Foundation to actually give 21 hours, up to 21 hours credit towards your degree
Wow.
at the University of Phoenix for actually having that CPP. So the CPP has value, great value.
I didn't realize that.
They take
yeah.
it and basically scrub it against the criteria for the degree that they pick, and they can get up to 21 hours to immediately kickstart
How about the
their
other
degree.
accreditations? Do they carry over too, like the investigator one, or the other ones, or just a CPP?
I'm not sure.
Okay, all right.
on that part
But
of it.
21 hours, that's a lot, right?
That's a lot.
Now, how many hours does it take to complete a degree? Let's say you're going to get the degree in security management. What's that going to take you?
That's your pace. That's the beauty of this.
What is
You
their
get
total
to
number? Is
pick.
it 80 credits? Or, I mean, to graduate, what is it? Do we know what the number is?
So like a traditional degree. I don't know.
Regular degree, right.
Because it's driven by the degree
Right.
as to exactly what it takes, but it's not far off the spectrum of what the number of hours you would need for a regular institutional degree.
Now, back in the day when I was a
major
cop,
university.
a lot of guys went to, well, a lot of guys went to University of Phoenix, I remember. And
Sure,
then
very popular.
University of Redlands was another one. And online wasn't exactly popular, but it was coming of age, right?
Sure.
And you would go to a class on a Saturday, and you'd stay there Saturday and Sunday, and that's how you did your school. Where are we now with that as opposed to online? I mean, is it really practical and easy to get a degree online?
It
Completely
is.
online?
Completely online.
Okay. And what does that
Absolutely.
mean? Let's define that, because I mean, does it really mean I log in and we verify who I am and my ID? Do I ever have to show up and show a picture ID or something? I don't know.
Oh, no, you have to. There's a whole vetting process.
Eventually you...
Right?
Yeah.
We've got to find the right fit for people. There's a process that has to be followed. But once you get through that process and you begin, I would even stretch to say that there is even more involved in doing this online, because there's a high level of accountability, literally getting online in a web conference environment and going through instruction, as well as you having to present and do your homework. That entire process, there's quite a bit to that.
Well, that's interesting you
And-
should say that. I remember I
yeah.
applied for it a couple of years ago, and I can't remember why I didn't finish the whole part, but it took a lot of me sending them paperwork, verification, IDs, your personal identifiable information, and vetting and verifying. It was very scrutinizing, I got to say. So I was pleased to see that.
Yeah, no, it's important. So it needs to be a good fit
Now,
for the student.
if you said, University of Phoenix 30 years ago, the University of, California would say, well, that's not, those aren't colleges. We're colleges, right? That's all changing, isn't it?
It's all changed we live in a very mobile world.
Right.
And with that, education has to follow. Now, here's the opportunity to do exactly that at your pace, anywhere, basically on the planet.
And it's all accredited, just like any other college is accredited. I think a lot of people have a misconception that a University of Phoenix or Webster or these other ones, well, that's not real college, that's a different college. And that's just not the
No.
case. I mean,
This
I
is-
got to tell you, I took
this
thousands
is as real as the University of Texas.
Right.
I'll just like any other institution, accredited and reviewed by all the right organizations
Right.
that are required to do that.
and I took when I used to hire people, I saw a lot of University of Phoenix graduates.
Absolutely.
Quite a few, I got to say, high percentage, especially military police had those backgrounds,
Yes.
like you said. Because the key is the flexibility. The key is you're putting a guy in the classroom that knows what he's talking about, and these kind of programs are kind of verifying that you know what you're talking about and putting a stamp on it.
Right.
Now, I have a radio show because nobody listens to me. I can't get anybody to hire me because I don't have all the acronyms, right? So
Right.
I value these kind of things. I think these are very, very important. Let's talk about standardizations. So we've heard a lot about police departments, and they're coming in doing investigations. The feds are saying, "Oh, you guys in Columbus, you don't know what you're doing, and we're going to give you some federal standards for that." I'm worried about it because if you plugged LAPD into Houston here and put all the LAPD guys here, and you switch the Houston cops and send them to LAPD, it would not work out well. Why? It's culture. It's
Culture.
all culture, right?
Right.
So when we look at education, we look at standardizations. That's not the same to me as a federal government coming in and saying, I got some recommendations and ideas on how to do things. Distinguish the two. I mean, if we federalize police departments, that's not going to work. But if we standardize security, I think that's valuable. And by the way, in England, I did a show a couple months ago. That's what England does. England's been doing this for a long time. They have all these national standards that they recommend to people. They don't force them by law to do it, but almost everybody adopts them, right? Why don't we have some kind of national recommendation and standards for security that's driven out of universities, because the feds are trying to drive the police standards all over the place, and I don't know, does that make sense? It seems like it's...
Well, I think ASIS International is really taking the lead on that in terms of standardization.
But
right?
that's individual. See, that goes to you're getting your degree and you're doing your education, but the corporation that you work for, they're just sending you off because you asked to go to the class. It's not the same buy-in at the C level, I don't think. That's my perception.
Well, over time, they've got to understand, and we just talked about our security competency model,
Right.
right? So maybe that's really the beginning of that, because that means HR is getting involved in those corporations, and those competencies and standards are set at that level. And you already have two major companies that have already adopted that as part of it. So it's a beginning process. So
we're
as
on
you say,
early
the
phase.
C-suite
Yeah.
starts signing off on that.
Well, the C-suite now has got to understand that San Bernardino is around the corner for everybody, potentially. And we have to get together on this and set some kind of standards of response, first responders and prevention and prediction and things like that. Are you finding that some of these C companies are sending employees to the University of Phoenix as opposed to people individually taking it on their own to come do it?
So
Any incentives, from the university?
Sure, absolutely.
Right.
So the U.S. government offers two corporations, I think it's $5,240, something along those lines. I was a benefactor of that. Our corporation had a criteria if, at the time, the corporation I was working with, if you've been with the company a year, they will pay the $5,240 towards your education. And that corporation benefits directly with the IRS, and they get to completely write that off.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
So
So
if I remember from when I applied, that's a good chunk of your tuition.
it's a big chunk of
It's a
tuition.
very big chunk,
It was
right.
over 90%.
That's
It
right.
covered it.
That's about right.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great program.
So now
Great
that's available
program.
that's available now, depending on how you qualify as a corporation, employees and size and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. If the corporation adopts it, they can exercise it as a program with their employees.
So Fox, where I used to work, could put all their guards through that if they wanted to.
Sure,
And
absolutely.
get reimbursed close to 90% for the pay.
Short of any legal part that I don't understand, that
understand.
is my understanding
Yeah.
of that program. And because I was a guard or in security as a chief security officer, and that was afforded me that opportunity. And I sent all my investigators and made sure they took advantage of that when they also received their master's degree in security.
Who are you finding are your main students? Where do they come from mostly?
All walks of life.
Not necessarily first responders anymore, like it started, but it's
So for the College of Security and Criminal Justice, of course, people have an interest, right?
Right.
So obviously there's some affinity, if you will, to naturally draw to that. Law enforcement eventually has to leave law enforcement, and the natural progression is to go into security. Well, now more than ever, while they're law enforcement officers, they could go through a program like ours, covering security, so they'd be better prepared. So when they go to market, they're more competitive
Yeah.
and more likely, because it's different working under the government. I worked there, as opposed to the private sector. The rules of engagement are very
it's totally different, yeah.
And so the delta and the difference on that is simply education. They need to be educated on that, and here's an opportunity to make that happen.
That makes a lot of sense. I got a high school diploma. I fortunately had literally college professors for my high school teachers. I was a very good education system in California back in the day. My high school was like the number 2 in the state. I got lucky, all right? I will tell you, though, I've been banging my head against the corporate ceiling for years, and I got up to VP level and COO at one company. Not easily, all right? Only because I worked 10 times harder than anybody else or had some kind of extra ability to do technology or something, right? And I always encouraged people under me that I was mentoring that, you know what, don't do what I did. Don't do it. It's a giant pain in the butt. You'll wind up doing a radio show, and then what's going to happen to you? So go get that degree, right? And I think you do need it. Now, back in the day, if you're a cop, high school diploma, you could shoot straight.
Absolutely.
No background problems. You got in.
Right.
Good bunch of guys. And to this day, I still think they're the best generation of cops in one way, right? They've changed that.
Very much
And
so.
even to be a police officer, they want you to have something.
Absolutely.
So yeah, if you're going to retire in 2 or 3 years, go get your degree, because you're going to need that walking in the door at a studio, a major corporation, to give you the edge over somebody else.
As well as those that are already in criminal justice, here's an opportunity to work in a different part of it. Maybe I want to go into probation and parole.
Right.
Maybe I want to go into corrections, right? Or I want to advance.
In your
Beyond
police
being
career.
absolutely, sergeant to lieutenant to captain to division chief. They're going to look, you will see many high level in major metropolitan areas with PhDs. That is not
No, that's true.
uncommon anymore.
And I've applied for a lot of chief of police jobs in small towns, right? And you're the chief and 2 deputies.
Right.
And of course, I ran departments with 500 guards, and I can't get a call back.
Right.
And if you read my LinkedIn, you'd say, this guy can run a town with 10 cops, right?
Sure.
Nope, I won't get a call back.
Yeah.
Because my degree doesn't fit a box on the online application.
Absolutely.
So I'm telling you guys, if you want to advance, go get this degree, or you're going to do a radio show, and that's where you'll be. So it's really important to do that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
So we have different people in security that are in careers, and you're, like you talked about your professors or teachers or people that are in the job already.
Right.
Do we get a lot of brand new kids that you know what, I think I want to get into criminal justice, no experience, they're out of high school, that wanted to get a criminal justice degree. And what does that get them? Because we have people with experience and no degree, and then people with no experience but a degree.
Right.
And in the middle is the practitioner that gets both eventually.
So I'd like to think that, and it's as someone who is also a graduate professor in that capacity, that taking a practitioner and making them a faculty member, we just satisfied both ends in the middle, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we do here, is we find those practitioners. In a lot of cases, they end up being our faculty, right? We have.
Well, you identify them in class and say, hey, come on over and help us teach.
That's one opportunity,
Yeah.
and obviously they are well aware of, because some of these are already law enforcement instructors at their police academies,
Oh, that's
perhaps.
true, yeah.
That's kind of a natural progression. They like to teach and educate and go. That's something that's important to them, right? So we've got some great faculty, and they know what's going on out there, which is really important to communicate and share that in a teachable format in a curriculum for those students.
What does the young entry-level student get out of a degree? I think it's going to help them get in the door and start their career over somebody else, right?
Absolutely. So if you have a degree, and
There's
you
two degrees.
just said it before.
Let's split it though. We got criminal
Yeah.
justice degree, and then we got the security management degree.
Sure.
What would you recommend for somebody that's new that wants to get into that business?
So if they want to get into the criminal justice business or the security business, and they want to have an edge, and this has been my experience, and you answered it just a few minutes ago, that box that you have to check, all that's automated now. They get thousands of applications. A human being doesn't even look at those. It scans through to see if enough boxes were checked. So you may not even get that opportunity, where otherwise you may be even qualified for that job role or posting.
Well,
So this allows you to get to that next step and an opportunity to get in front of people and do what we're doing right now, which is interviewing
they're
them.
two different disciplines. I get, one may be law enforcement and one may be private security, but do either degrees help in each of those disciplines?
They do so more now than ever before. Law enforcement and private security working together,
Can you
right?
get a degree in both if you spent the time and money for
You
it?
absolutely.
But it'd be a big process to get both, I suppose.
Sure, it would be
Yeah.
a big process, but you'd have all the basics covered, just like if you go to any university. Got to take English, got to take math,
Yeah.
all the basic courses, and then you focus on your degrees. I have 3 degrees, and each one that I got, I was able to take fewer classes because the core classes were out of the way.
And I find that, and no offense to my brothers and sisters out there, right? But a lot of cops don't understand security. Police function is not a security function.
It's not.
Really, it's a first responder function. It's a, secure perimeters, follow-up, it's investigations, but
Right.
cops are not charged with protecting me personally. They're charged with protecting the community. In doing so, I may be safe that way.
But they're conducting a security function for the community.
Well, protection more than
society.
security. Don't you think it's more protection?
I think their presence right off the bat is an excellent
Deterrent,
deterrent. Absolutely
But sometimes
right.
a lot of cops transition from police into security and corporate, and I see a lot of turnover in that. And they think, oh, we're going to hire a cop to do the security department. And then, nope, that didn't work. So
Right.
maybe the security degree would help a practitioner, right, a police officer.
Very
By the
much
way,
so.
if I walk in and get a degree, if I walk in with an application, and I've done 15 years at Burbank PD, and I have a degree in security, I would find that more attractive.
I would too,
In
because
the corporate side of it, see?
because
I'm
they're
gonna
tied to
assume
the
you were a cop.
community.
Yeah,
They're tied to the businesses.
I
in
don't
the
need a degree for your
community.
police work. I'm assume you
Sure.
did it, right?
Right.
Do you find that the cops go that way, or do they try to get the criminal justice degree?
Traditionally, they're criminal justice degree.
Okay.
And then they'll follow up with a natural transition into the security industry. Now, some of them, especially the ones that are working in crime prevention, community-based policing, problem policing, maybe working a storefront in the, out there more directly with the public from a, let's just say, public relations perspective. So that's a great opportunity because it's explaining what risk. We talked about this earlier. Security is risk.
Right.
So what's important to those individuals and their homes, their assets, and their businesses as it relates to risks? So they need to really have that corporate and kind of mindset, if you will, to understand what's important to them. So if they're coming in and they're in criminal justice and they're out on patrol one day and they respond to a business, then they'll have a much better insight and perspective on how to communicate and, more importantly, how to help that business owner.
Now, you told me before we started rolling that the University of Phoenix was in how many countries?
I don't know how many countries.
I thought it was over 100, we said, right? Was it something like that?
There's 110 campuses.
Oh, I'm sorry. Campuses. I beg your pardon.
Yes.
110 campuses. Okay.
I don't know what the count is officially
Yeah, yeah.
today, but the University of Phoenix, as you can see, we have 3 buildings here.
Just in Houston,
Just
yeah.
in the Houston area. We try to spread those out such that it's easy access for everybody. As you can see, we're 100 feet off Interstate 10. So it's very easy to
Yes,
get to us.
my hotel room noticed that as well. It's very close. It's very close.
And convenient.
You have a lot of big freeways around here.
Yeah.
I've never. It looks like Autotopia Disneyland.
Right. Well, the widest freeway in the country is just 4 miles up the road.
Oh, is it? Interesting. And there's very little traffic, I gotta say.
Yeah. Well, big roads. You know.
Everything's big. in
Wait till
Texas.
5 o'clock.
All right. What do you think is the number one threat in the world right now? Just personal opinion. What do you think is going on with what's the next big thing that's going to happen?
What's the next big thing that's going to happen?
I don't think it's San Bernardino.
Well, I'm going to have a
I think we're-
cheeseburger. That's a big thing tonight.
Okay.
So we'll exclude that. You know, you see a lot going on around our country with law enforcement, right? Society's expectations are really changing. The accountability level is really changing. So law enforcement is going to have to respond, and that's really the next big thing with the community in a very different way, a very community-oriented way that satisfies their job and the need to protect the community and society and people visiting here and their businesses and everything that's going on, balanced with working with people and understanding their problems and helping to solve their problems and being very sensitive to that.
But see, I went in. I went in the 80s. Weren't you in the 80s, right?
I was in the 80s.
Kind of similar time,
Yes.
right? I think we did all these things. I think we were taught those things. I think we had street smarts. I think we liked people. I think we appreciated the human condition. I think we treated people with respect. And we were grouchy once in a while because it just happens. But really, the professionalism
Right.
was just over the top.
You're
And I
right.
saw that all around the country with people I work with, especially in California and Texas. We have high standards, right?
Yes.
And I don't know what's happened. I don't like to believe some of the things I see on TV. One of the problems is that the police departments don't own their image now. They haven't stepped up and said, you know what, why don't we get a Twitter account? There's more and more of them every day, of course.
They're
right?
coming on board very quickly.
They have to, right? Because
have to.
why do I want this guy across the street with his video camera to own my image?
Society demands it and expects it.
And they have to learn it. See, they have to understand that there's a value in that, and
Right.
it's not really self-promotion as much. It's I think from them, it's factual presentation. In other words, let's not let the news say what's going on. If you're on a crime scene, you just got the crap beat out of you. Let's take a picture of that and let's tweet it.
Right.
Look what just happened. I got hit in the head with a brick, and here's
Everybody
what's
is media now. Everybody is radio now.
Yeah.
And you have
Everybody's
to,
their own news station.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. I mean, let's stop and think. Since 1991 to 2016, crime has been cut in half
Yeah.
in the United States of America. People go, no way.
going on. No,
Yes.
they don't believe it. But
50% of property crimes, 50% of it's hard to understand.
But
think
America's
about it.
crazy and out of control, right? When you look in the media and, we're all going to die over
Absolutely.
here, America's violent and all this kind of crap. And I go, that's just not the facts. But they tie the police to those things and
Right.
say, no, police are all a bunch of assassins. And it's just makes me sick to my stomach. It's very sad, actually.
I understand. Well, we and they are going to have to do a much better job of getting out there and communicating with the public. And I'm a big, big advocate of crime prevention, and I'm a big advocate of community-based policing. That is first and foremost what law enforcement needs to be doing, and they need to build their strategies and their plans first and foremost there. Because, Chuck, you know as well as I do that law enforcement are the number one responders in the world.
It's the face
we
of
do
government.
it. It is.
It's the face of any government, any local.
But it's ex post facto.
I know.
It's too late. Damage done. So they're going to have to work on that, and I'm part of that world, so I can speak to this and say we've got to really focus on doing a really good job of doing what we can to prevent crime, intervene in that crime, and work with the community through community-based policing practices. And you got to have people to do that, and that's a lot of the argument you're going to get back from a lot of agencies. We don't have enough people.
Well, I know things have been cut drastically.
Sure.
My PD Culver City had about 125 cops for 100,000 people, right? You're bumping into each other because a perfect model is one cop per 1,000 people. And we had 100,000 or 125 cops, right?
Sure.
Now it's down to about 75. Now, crime's gone down. We used to have the fastest response time in the country from periodically.
Right.
And now probably not so much. So we're getting smarter at doing police work. Obviously, if crime's down, and we're using less police officers. But this perception that there's a pandemic of police Nazis running around assassinating people, it's poppycock. It's nonsense. It makes me angry, and the cops have to step in and say, nope, it's not what happened. Now, I think the reason for that is that when we were cops, your chief was a civil servant. Mm-hmm. Your chief was not appointed by the mayor or the city council. They weren't hired. They were appointed. They applied. And if you were going to fire them, it had to be by cause.
Right.
And I don't know about the other states in the country, but in California, there were some very strict protections. That's why Daryl Gates was so hated in one way, because they couldn't fire him. But he
Sure.
did a good job, right?
Sure.
Do you think there's a component there that now we got chiefs that are more politicians than law enforcement? To some degree. I mean, I'm not criticizing them. I'm just saying they have to look at that now when they make decisions, where they didn't have to look at that stuff before.
Well, I think it's always been the case. Every sheriff is elected in this country.
Well, let's talk about that. Mm-hmm. Sheriffs, I don't see that image issue.
So,
See what I'm saying? Like, you never hear anything bad about the
mm-hmm.
sheriffs in LA County, but you hear things bad about the chief of police. and the sheriff's elected. So
Well, I think it's different in different jurisdictions, depending on the makeup of the community, the culture, its history, as to whether or not sheriffs or chiefs of police. These are law enforcement leaders, and as law enforcement leaders, they have a duty and a responsibility, and that's what they do. Right? They're doing the very best, I think, that they can with what they have to work with. Can you imagine being the chief of police of a major metropolitan area and you have 5,000 officers, and ultimately one human being, that is you, is responsible for their behavior?
Yeah, it's a big job.
It's a big
and they
job.
don't give you money for training, and they put you on a firing line once a year and say, okay, you're a good shot now, and then
Sure.
something happens and they sue everybody, and it's problematic. I want to go around the country and do a tour and interview police departments. There's tens of thousands of them, right? I think it was about 10,000, I think, United States. And the average police department used to be about, what was it, less than 50?
Yeah,
Very
well,
small.
They
25.
14,000. They're like 362 agencies now in the United States. So that's what we're up to, and most of those are right. 80% are small agencies.
Yeah, little agencies, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yep.
So I agree with you on that. I think that if that goes sideways, so goes a lot of other things, right?
Sure.
I think our biggest threat is cyber. I think that if we took the grid down, we would touch the police departments, we would touch the governments, we would touch the homes, we would affect and kill a lot of people. And I was just talking to Cerise, our cyber gal, and she said they just had the first documented successful takedown of an electrical grid in the Ukraine, which happened, I think she said right before New Year's or right after New Year's, and nobody noticed it. And
Absolutely.
wasn't put on the news, and it took down a whole town. And 6,000 people were without power for a day or something like that.
Yeah, we're going to see more of it. There's no question about it. Look, the reality is with enough time and money, you can successfully hack just about anything. And now the real threat, and that which has really been coming up as popular in training and trying to come up with some solution based, is what we call the insider threat. So you combine somebody, some 21-year-old kid that's over in an Eastern Bloc country launching a piece of malware, right? But now you have somebody here who's tied to that person, who's now the janitor at that company working on the inside. So they're really working on that combination, and there's a lot of concern around that, how we're going to address it.
In security modeling, the first thing I look at, believe it or not, are not my assets. I mean, people's assets vary, right? So it could be that you're protecting gold bullion or the TV sets. Mm-hmm. But my internal threats become the functions.
Right.
If I can't get the guard to show up, that's a threat to my organization. That's a bigger threat to my organization than a terrorist attack. Because that guy not showing up for a week, you're not going to have a terrorist show up every day for a week. But a guard not showing up for a week is a threat. Do your programs help address the nuts and bolts and how to run guard companies and how to run security departments? Because that's really almost an art in itself.
Short of getting in depth with the curriculum for that course, sure, line function personnel, right, is what we're talking about, right?
First
and
responders.
And then we're talking about things like span of control, right? How many people do you really need that one person can supervise effectively to protect the target whatever it happens to be. So those are principles that are covered, I know, in our criminal justice program, and I'm sure they are covered in our security program because it's the same principle, right? You have to have somebody actually there, but how do you strategically deploy them, right? Again, going back to our faculty, of which so many are practitioners, they know where the rubber meets the road and exactly what works and how many and what time of day and what kind of person do you want in that role. Are they armed? Are they unarmed? Is this someone who likes to engage people and talk to people, and which is really important, right?
Right.
When you walk into a store, hey, how you doing? That's the
greeters.
first line of defense.
That's right.
Right? So it puts a would-be shoplifter on guard to say, this is a bad target. Let me go to a softer target down the street.
Yeah. Well, Chucky, we just did 30 minutes on that. That's amazing.
Wow, 30 minutes. That's
Yeah.
great.
Thanks for
Good.
coming on, and I look forward to more interviews and stuff. And what's our next big Friends of Chuck event? What's going on?
So I can probably announce that at ASIS International, Texas Night 2016, Orlando, Florida.
2016, all
at
right.
BB King's.
Oh, cool.
So this year we're going to have 1,800 to 2,000 guests show up. So we
Excellent.
will be the biggest beginning event in the 62-year history of ASIS International. So I'm excited about that.
Very good.
Of course, that's in the capacity, disclaimer, as the regional vice president
Right.
for the state of Texas for ASIS International Region 3C. So looking forward to that, as well as everybody else. And of course, Chuck, you'll be there.
I will be there. Although I
And,
hate Florida and I hate the humidity, I will be there.
Well, then you'll come to Texas in August in Houston because it's hot and humid here.
Chuck, thanks for coming on. It's
All
really
right.
great. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Chuck.
it.
All right.